Okay, here's my amended complaint memorandum. Okay, and evidence of fraud. Now, if you watch my last video, you'll notice all this is the same. All this is the same. This is a notice to the court, memorandum and evidence of fraud supplemental with the case number. Everything's got their numbered paragraphs. Okay, this goes into pretty big detail about some stuff, and we'll go through it here. As you can see, there's lots of case laws and some other stuff. Goes into legal, but we'll get into that. Let's start at the top here. So, United States Code 204. Those titles of the U.S. Code which are not enacted into positive law are considered prima facie. Enactment positive law, prima facie, means a fancy way to say that they're simply presumed to be law until you challenge it or you prove it otherwise. Not only is this presumptuous and irresponsible, it is a violation of due process to cite a section from a code that has not been enacted into positive law. Examples of these titles would be the Internal Revenue Code, Public Health and Welfare. Okay, it is not positive law and therefore imposes no obligation on anyone who does not volunteer to be subject to it. A common way for ORS, which is the Office of Recovery Services, Child Support here in Utah, and other officers involved in the divorce decrees, both named and unnamed, to hide presumptions is to cite legislation written specifically for their benefit, assuming authority with a legal pleading and choosing a code or case that does not match the circumstances of my case. This is a way of imposing presumptions against parties without having to justify or prove them. This is a common tactic used by the government against those not educated in the law or who are litigating pro se. A statute or code which imposes a presumption, such as defendant's attempt to label me an obligor or a debtor or even a person or a U.S. citizen, prejudices constitutionally protected rights and is unconstitutional. It is reckless and irresponsible abuse of case law and authority to cite a case without at least explaining whether it fits my case. In divorce proceedings, to just assume all divorces must have child support as part of the divorce is a presumption, and in order for ORS or any government agency to be inserted into a proceeding, they must first establish intervention is mandatory, which they can't do. Here's Bailey versus Alabama. I'll stop it. You can read that. In the field of criminal law, a defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty. That's a fact. Well, that's up for debate. This presumption of innocence must be applied to divorce proceedings as well. In the divorce, adults have decided authority at all times to decide what to do with their property, their assets, and children until evidence of unfitness or harm has been done to the child, okay, and it's being entered, okay? So that's that hearing that I talked about. They have to have a hearing to find you unfit, and they, somehow would get jurisdiction over your property. Your kids are your property, by the way. That's your child. Over the years, the courts have started assuming authority to reign over every aspect of adults' lives. Legislation, courts, and government have written presumptive procedures to circumvent law. An example would be the Motor Vehicle Code. We all know about that you don't need, okay, a license or permission from the state for traveling, okay. Old Dog, New Tricks. You might want to look him up on the internet. Old Dog, New Tricks. He's into this, and he's into the secured party. There's We Hunt versus Ledbetter. You probably know about that. The court, the commissioner, the judge are funded by Title 40 program grants or under contract to insure child support, so they presume authority, have written presumptive legislation to comply for money and have assumed their authority over me, and I must pay child support through ORS and could not possibly support my own kids without them being involved. This adoption of laws, okay, who have not been found unfit is a violation of parental rights as seen in numerous Supreme Court cases. Let's see, another example is Blessing versus Freestone, which clearly states that they do not create rights. This is a huge difference between a federal right and a federal law. 42602 is presumptive law, made more assumptions and require the state, if they want funding, to create a system. Yeah, create a system of wage withholding. That's that stuff that you see out there that they twist. Like E-Verify and these other things. That's not to keep illegal aliens out, okay? That's so they can find you with your social security number. So as a condition of receiving benefits, the applicant, not the father, not both parties in a divorce, not a man, not a woman, not the birth certificate signer, but the applicant must assign to the state any support rights. Family must cooperate. Okay, and establish paternity and collect support. Well, part of that is an assumption. I never signed any of my rights away. Okay, I'll stop it. I'll let you read that. Okay, ORS assumes paternity, has never actually proved paternity in a court of law, and they must establish paternity before proceedings begin. So it's all assumptions and presumptions. And then I start talking about legal. A man are not the same, and a father. A man has rights. Father has privileges. What services are. Paternity is legally established on the date both parents sign the certificate of parentage, which is the birth certificate. However, the legal consequences of signing this form are not spelled out and understood. The fact that ORS can use this form later in life to incarcerate a man for non-compliance to their presumptions is outrageous. This form is signed under duress without full disclosure and is legally defective. Okay, inadmissible and cannot be used as evidence or authority. Nothing can be more material to the obligation than the means of enforcement. So all this here is out of 303-101 and Vinci versus Von Hoffman versus City of Quincy. Okay, I love this one. Because of what appears to be a lawful command on the surface, many people, because of their respect for what appears to be the law, are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. Okay, that's a big one. Okay, that's what we do, man. We walk in there, we don't know. As soon as you walk in there, dude, you give them jurisdiction. You don't know that. Rights are secured by the Constitution. There can be no rule making or legislation. You can't write legislation that goes around the Constitution, that abrogates it. That's your Miranda rights right there. The rights of the individuals are restricted only to the extent that they have been voluntarily surrendered. Okay? Well, if you don't know about all these invisible contracts, okay, well, yeah, you're not the only one. The right of all parents to raise their child, okay, as they see fit, has been adjudicated. It's not debatable. There's thousands of case laws out there about parents have the right. Okay, they are the party that has the most. They are the secured party, let's say. Okay, state of Utah using ORS to secure federal funding presumes eternity, but does not legally establish the terms of signing a birth certificate through voluntary, knowingly intelligent acts. ORS does not have an office in the hospital where adults go, sit down, and are explained the consequences of signing a birth certificate, including losing driving privileges and incarcerations. Therefore, any assumptions of waiver of rights by signing a document without complete disclosure is void. Okay? Let you read that. Let you read that. Just a couple more. Okay, party in interest may be liable for fraud by mere silent acquiescence and partaking of benefits of fraud. Party cannot be bound to a contract he has not made or authorized. Okay, look that up. That's a good one there. Declaration states very clearly the government gets its power from us, and all these procedures and ordinances and rules and policies and enforcement, anything the government does must conform to the law, or us in a state of deceptively converted average words and definitions, okay, and made us into a corporation, a trust. It's called a cess decay trust. It is a fact that governments are corporations and not living, breathing. Hence, only through contracts do they get their services. A man cannot be coerced into a contract, but the state has created debtors and creditors and parents, non-custodials and obligors, and all through deception and color of law and legal deception by labeling him something that he is not. And once they've labeled you, then they can attack you with their bullshit contracts. They use other enforcement techniques, such as men with guns, who will force you to comply with their corporate jurisdiction. All they want is money, and they want customers. And they will do whatever they can to extract a fee, even break the law. They want complete control of every aspect of his life, and to charge a fee to support their big business privileges. And until the day, well, that day has come. I do not consent. Under the law, only fathers are required to pay, and ORS is not lawfully established this man to be any of their color of law fictions. Okay, the county clerk who does the marriage licenses, they don't inform you that getting married would give the state jurisdiction over marital issues, and that the child support agency now has jurisdiction over your child and is waiting for the divorce so they can pounce on you and assault you with their contracts. That is the very definition of a due process violation and cannot be considered lawful authority. The law says they must post the legal consequences of a marriage license, or of any license for that matter. That would be considered full disclosure, therefore not telling people about to pay money for this privilege that they don't really need, about the legal ramifications of getting married. And how about getting married gives the state authority to seize your property, control your life, take away your child, make you a slave, fee and fine you. That is the very definition of deception. The legal consequences of getting married would be wage withholding, liens on property, offset of unemployment, seizure of property, reporting arrearages, credit agencies, the prevention of credit, seizure of income taxes, revocation of licenses, and going to prison. So were you told when you got married or divorced that you were going to go to prison? No, and that is concealment, and that's fraud. So, in violation of due process, Public Law 10366 and 303-101, if you're up to speed, you know what that is. And there it is. The due process rights of the parties involved must be protected. The court will notice these laws and sections mentioned don't say father or obligor or non-custodial or debtor. Okay? It says the parties. Both parties. Due process, make sure all parties are aware and have full knowledge of the contract they're about to sign, or the legal obligations. Anything less is void. Okay? So you people here and any other corporation that has converted my name in an all capitalized corporate legal fiction, unless I consented to a transparent, lawful, voluntary contract, you are trespassing and have no authority. You will cease and desist under color of law contracts to extort money from me and for your own personal gain, and you will immediately stop, cease, desist, assuming you have prior interest in my property, have legal standing, have subject matter jurisdiction, or have power of attorney and the right to administer my property. Any and all presumptions of authority over this man are void. You are fired. The proper status of me is now an injured party because of your contracts. The injured party is perfecting, asserting, and exercising his unalienable right to privacy. Section 1, Article 1 of the Constitution. The injured party is a man, adult male. Okay? Creator of the universe. Genesis 1:26. Free means not subject to. This affidavit is executed by the injured party as newly discovered evidence relating to the paternity of a child has come in the injured party's knowledge since the initial paternity determination or establishment of the child support obligation. To bring an action in court under 666, the injured party bears a burden of proof, fraud, and duress. Well, let's look at that. This is proven beyond a doubt from the following stems. You're threatening to have me criminally prosecuted and imprisoned for not signing your voluntary paternity. You threaten to seize my offspring and turn over my newborn to social services if I don't sign the birth certificate. Yeah, try to walk out of a hospital without signing the birth certificate and see what they do. See if they don't call the police on you. Threatening to criminally prosecute me if I don't disclose personal information. Threaten to have the injured party imprisoned if I don't voluntarily, piss in a cup. Threatening to suspend my driver's license. Threaten to lien my property. Conceal the paternity results in an automatic wage garnishment. I mean, that's what they're doing. You have a baby and they're now in the wing, like behind the curtain, waiting to steal your money. That's what this is all about. Concealing the fact the injured party will be denied equal protection. And we'll get into that. That's a big one right there, okay? In my notice of revocation, which is next, this is a big one. Then you compel me to use my Social Security account number, which ain't mine, by the way, okay, so that you can get into that trust account. Promoting and participating in premeditated identity theft, which means she went and got the divorce. She gave them all my information and all my private information. I didn't give them anything, and that's compelling, okay, because they can't do anything without that Social Security number, and I sure as hell didn't give it to them. Concealing the fact that the procedures are not part of the court system. Yeah, and Rick talks about that all the time. You go in and see these magistrates and all these other knuckleheads, and ain't none of them a judge. And if you read the child support, federal manual of child support, it states in there, it tells you over and over how they got to devise a way to do this without the justice court system. Okay? They don't want the judges looking at this stuff, man. Look at Montana. Look at Minnesota. They both said it's unconstitutional, and they've voided out child support. So they're catching on. So the result of all this concealment is that they can get their share of multi-billion-dollar federal grant money. Okay, we all know that. And they pay state employees first. Okay, there's 658. False advertising. Congress created, I love this. Congress created a belief that all children have the right to receive support from their fathers. Okay, this is Bill, I'm going to fuck everybody and rape a bunch of women, Clinton. The committee bill, just like the identical provision passed by the Senate, was a scheme designed to help children attain the legal right to have their fathers identified so that support can be obtained through automatic wage withholding. Okay? To create this right, paternity established services are sold to customers, okay, called non-custodial parents. Evidence proves that the belief is a fact, an existential claim. To claim belief in an existence of something in a general way with the implied need to justify its claim into existence would be the same as believing in a ghost or Santa Claus. It doesn't have any merit, okay? The belief that children have a claim on their father's income and have a right to receive support is not inherent, unalienable, right, grounded, or protected from intrusion as mandated by both state and federal constitution. The right to receive support is a legal right bestowed on children by Congress, okay? It is not a right. See the glossary of child support terms, okay? Read all that. Establishment of fatherhood is the legal rights, the legal establishment. Doesn't say lawful in here, does it? It says legal means a legal fiction. That's what it is. It's created. It's created and established by legal fictions. Okay, legal is created. Regulations, codes, statutes, ordinances. The rest of them, citations, all that shit. That's legal. That's legalese. Okay? The Constitution's the law. Common law is the law. I asked the court to extract. They're guilty of fraud. They're guilty of mail fraud. They're guilty of contract fraud. They're guilty of fraud. They're all guilty. Okay? So that, my friends, is the memorandum. Memorandum and evidence of fraud supplemental. All right.